Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Uh, well, this morning I got up, I don't know, about 9 o'clock, and they were spraying the sky pretty good. And now the sky, it was really sky blue, and now it's kind of silver. So we have a lot of metal in the air. And I would say I have no idea why you're sick. Uh, uh, uh. Just kind of have to walk through this big house to get to a little back room. Kind of, that's like the rest of the world, just walk around, you know. It's the tomorrow of tomorrow of tomorrow of tomorrow of tomorrow of tomorrow, and the tomorrow of the tomorrow of the tomorrow, 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 just tomorrow, tomorrow, of the tomorrow of the tomorrow of the tomorrow of the tomorrow of the tomorrow. Oh, woo. Oh, MJ, how you doing, buddy? So, I was gonna try and do a live chat yesterday, but I got hijacked by the platforms. I was watching a show called Utopia. That's kind of interesting, and the Blacklist, and the Rim, and Enhanced, and Great, Catherine the Great, and it was interesting. All those shows. The most interesting, the one I was drawn to the most was Utopia, and Mr. Rabbit, because it took you down the rabbit hole, and it was interesting. Very close to my writing, right? Really interesting, entertaining, but James Joyce on acid, and that was good. So, yep, Blacklist. That was on for like 9 years. I think. Is it still on? But it was on for a long time. They cover a lot of subjects. Some were pretty good. Some were Some were excellent, right? And some were very good at showing you kind of what was going on behind the screen, behind the curtain. What's it about? It's about what's going on right at this minute. It's about large corporations, about singular groups with hidden agendas and pandemics, flus, right? And and it was like I think it was like thought of and written and passed around the developers like in 2018 and 19, and then they went into production probably in mid 19 and started to get 5 or 6 shows before 2012, before the 2012 seasons, and that's when they started doing it. 2020 was when they started, right? And it was pretty much exactly what was going on, but even and it had lots of other side worlds like the Comic-Con world, the comic book world, the breakaway civilization world, all of the above world. And so that's, so it's quite interesting. And it's on, I think it's on, it might be on, it's either on Amazon or on um, Netflix. And so Netflix, I think, has probably been it's one of the older platforms. Hulu has some good things on it, and but there are a lot of some really good. I mean, it makes the networks look like forget about it, right? And pretty much it is, and it gives a good sense of the kind of what's going on in the world, that it's the same old same. It's the same characters, just rebranding, and that's kind of what we're in right now. We're in this state of rebranding, right? And I just wanted to. So Mary MJ, right? Michelle, is that it? Michelle, because I can't. Michelle Jones. Now if that wasn't a like a spy girl name, I don't know what is. It's almost as good as James Bond. Michelle Jones. Michelle Jones. So tell me your story, Michelle, since it's only you and me and the rest of the World Wide Web. I'm not really going into. I came on to. Give you the audience. Hey, I'm going to do a interesting Friday, and I'm going to try and do Friday nights as long as I'm in an environment where I can access the internet. I'm going to, do a Friday night one, like starting somewhere between 7:30, 7 to 8, and go on. Now, the last one I did. Let's see, breakaway civilization like Mad Max. No, that's not a breakaway civilization. Mad Max. MJ, did you ever see the movie? Really, the best description in early films of the breakaway civilization was an H.G. Wells film made in the 30s called Things to Come. That's very good. And MJ, have you read any of what's interesting, Jules Verne's had science fiction kind of, and H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells was a real scientist. He went to university and he was always the smartest guy in the class, and he was teaching college. And The Time Machine, he wrote a novel when he was 10, right, called The Daisy Boy. And when his first novel, when he was in the university, just graduating with his high degrees, and he came from low, like from the low, not even middle class, not merchant status. His parents tried to be merchants, but they were just maids and gardeners, and they kind of, did no business, so they took all their money and started a little business, and it failed, which put them even further behind the 8 ball. But the mother was always made in the super duper place, so he would take HG he would stay in the rich guy's library and read all the books. So anyway, he made it, and his story is true. Go on YouTube and go to YouTube and say, I want to hear about Wikipedia H.G. Wells or YouTube H.G. Wells, and it'll tell you everything. And what's interesting is that people know of Time Machine. They know of War of the Worlds. They know of, if they're somewhat well-read, they know that he wrote The Invisible Man, and they know that he wrote Island of Dr. Moreau. And all these were based on science, right? Not just, Burns was just making it up as he went along. But H.G. Wells was known as a telling of the future, right? And he really got it right. And he wrote a book called The Outline of History, which that book was one of two that was most read in the 20th century, right? And so between the 1990s And um, you know, well, 89 to 09, I was the itinerant scholar, right? And when I was at these universities doing research for somebody else, like the Council on Foreign Relations or Brookings or whoever, whatever foundation I was, they would, I wasn't doing it out of my car. They would, pay some university to house it, pay them money, and enable them to use their resources, like universities like Duke and Cornell and Princeton and Stanford and MIT and things of that nature have really interesting resources, right? And then other state college, UMass, and things of that nature. They have, that's where a lot of research comes from. And that's, DARPA is housed in all those, universities, right? And most of that research isn't being paid. It is, in the end, paid by the taxpayer, but it's being done by corporations, right? Because if the government does it, if you know about it and you can get the name of the program and its number, you can file a FOIA report, and they will, send you what they have about it. Now, you may get boxes and boxes of stuff with everything, blacked out, and but at least it tells you that, oh, something's going on, right? So may not tell you what it is, but it'll tell you that, hey, something's going on. But if the corporation's doing it, they don't tell you squat, right? So between 89 and 09, I was the itinerant scholar, getting paid basically to go to school, right, and read and write. And that's what H.G. Wells did, right? And so when I was at these universities, and if I was there for more than a few months, if I was, let's say, there a year or a year and a half, at some point the administration would come, because they'd gotten used to me, and I would have kind of a following, right, at that university. So they would go, hey, listen, we need some guy. Can you teach, environmental science? Can you teach, Latin? Can you teach literature? Can you teach biology? Can you teach, anything like the beginning things, freshman this, that, and the other thing? And I would say, sure, $100 a class, and give me an office with all the facilities, so the Xerox machine, the phone number, etc., so I can have students and create syllabuses and hands out, and I want a section of the library, right, and a lecture hall, or if they had a theater, I love doing my classes in a black box, so there'd be no kind of sensory input. They would be like in sensory deprivation, right? And then I'd show movies, and we would read books, right? And virtually every class, no matter what it was, I would have them read H.G. Wells' Outline of History. So, MJ, I would suggest you to go on YouTube, watch whatever films, A&E, whatever, biography they have on H.G., and see that. And it'll give you a good list of all his books. Start reading them, right? And read he wrote all these essays like I did. Now he was well known. Like his book, Outline of History, like I said, was one of two books that was read by more people on Earth in the 20s. I mean, not 20s, the 20th century. Anybody else, right? But does anyone even talk about? No, they talk about Time Machine or War of the Worlds, but not any of the. He was prolific. And that book, the first year he wrote that, took him a year to write that book. And then he published it. And he had already published a whole bunch, so he had publishers. And that was one of the first books to sell 1 million copies in less than 6 months. So in the first year, he sold 2.5 million copies. And then the next 10 years, he sold between 3 and 10 million a year. I mean, that book, and he published it himself. He got like 80% after expenses, the profit from that book. He didn't have a publisher, right? He had somebody putting it out. They got like 3%. He paid for the printing and everything, and he made a fortune, right? And He also became, I mean, he was already famous, but this really put him on the map. And, hardly like they know, oh, yeah, that guy, the War of the World thing, Martians, blah, blah, blah. But no, he's pretty amazing. So, um, things like Star Trek is definitely, and, his book, Things to Come in the movie, that was made in the 30s about it just before World War II broke out. And he like put it all out. And everything about World War One, he put it all out like 5 years before World War One. So he was pretty prophetic. And he was really a liberated guy sexually. And he was totally more women's lib than most women. Like he had 2 wives, and they were both like free thinkers and out there, but they were still, Victorian women. But they were enlightened enough and loved him enough. They said, well, if you like, they didn't like sex as much as he did. So they said, well, not a problem. You can have as much sex, just do it with someone who's not going to bring anything home. And I want to know this person. No sneaking around. You tell me exactly what's going on. It's not a problem, right? Truth is not a problem. Yeah, keep everything illuminated, not a problem. So he wrote books about women's liberation and sexual freedom, and not from a misogynist point of view. So, let's see, world. Yes, now that one is, and Elon Musk, all those guys, Musk, Jobs, Bill Gates, moron boy of Facebook, they're all just poster boys. They all went to the same school. Did you ever see the J.J. Abrams show on called Fringe? And there were these people who, Walter experimented on his kids because they were really smart, and he was enhancing their everything. And our heroine was one of those kids, and that's all of those silicon, and they are silicon. They're like, they're not even human. And I met Elon Musk. He is a moron. I saw him being interviewed, and someone. It was just when they were doing their first, X spaceship, right? And he had no idea why it was called X. And X is everything you need. MJ, you need to. Now, Deep State is a whole different thing, but you need to go watch a channel that I play regularly on mine. It's like, here, look at this, kids. It's called Dark Journalism. And he has a series called his X series, right? Need to go see that. There's a great, so when the guy who played James Bond, the first James Bond, Sean Connery, after he did like 3 or 4, he didn't want to be typecast. So he stopped doing James Bond movies. And in the 1970s, he did 5 or 6 movies. He did Man Who Would Be King with Michael Caine. He did Time Bandits. He did Everything You Know Is Wrong. And that was made in, 1970 something, somewhere between 4 and 8. And it was exactly 9/11. And what was amazing about it was who did it, where the money came from. It went through from the Nazis to, Mossad, to the CIA, to the, every single, it was an amazing, it told you in 1974 what was going to happen in 2001 on 9/11. And the thing was to take down the World Trade Centers, right? And so that movie, and there was a movie made, and this is the movie you need to see, MJ. See it tonight. Go on to YouTube right now while we're talking, and look up whatchamacallit, Zardos. It starts with an X. Zardos, right? And that was made in the 70s or early 80s, I think 70s. And it's what's going on now, or now into the next 40 years. And so while we're talking, pin. Yep. So And there's also, Jack Ryan, that guy. They made the movie with Harrison Ford. Now there's another guy, the guy who was in The Office. He's playing Jack Ryan. And the people who are writing and running that show are doing a very good job of telling the story of, from, oh, 19 from the fall in 1969. Everything changed in 1963 when Jack was killed. I mean, that's you can stick a pin in it and draw a line from then to now to show all the crazy wacko shit that's going on, and it's all interconnected. And when you say the dark, the what do you call it? The deep state is almost an irrelevancy, because what it is in this thing, Jack Ryan, his cover is he works at State Department, moving furniture, but he's an analysis guy, right? And his whole thing is following the money, and so the thing starts where he notices money in large sums. Al-Qaeda did 9/11 allegedly on a budget of about $800,000, and he is seeing the transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars, meaning an unbelievable, very sophisticated. You can buy a lot with hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Especially if you're living out in the woods, not spending much money on stuff. So if you're not ordering things from Amazon. So so that's the context, and he goes to his boss, who's a guy who's been fired from a higher echelon job, and he's really hot shit guy, but he made a few mistakes. Some things were going on in his life, and he kind of fell off the apple cart, and so they just moved him in the back, in the back, right, in the office. And so Ryan comes to him and says, "Hey, look at this. I think this is going to happen." And the guy is pissed off that he is where he is, and and he just says, "Go back to your desk, shut up. I don't want to hear anything. I'm just going to mope in my office." And they don't have a window. The place, he's so low on the office structure that he's in a place. His thing doesn't even have a window. So anyway, and a couple of days later, what our boy Jack said, "Hey, look at this." It pops up, and the guy is sharp enough to see it without him. Jack having to see, "I told you so." And he goes and gets Jack from a party, and then they go and to right where it's happening. So this guy's a guy of action. He does it anyway, and so they kind of do this to this thing that's happening, but it brings it up to the surface so everyone can see, this is not good. So they go back to DC, and then the new boss has said, "Okay, well, this is my golden boy, so I'll instead of telling you to shut up, I'll listen to whatever you say." So you then see the deep state, and what the deep state is just a bureaucratic block of all of government. And the deep state is in, the garbage man in your neighborhood. The deep state is, if the people working within, municipal, and that's everything, not just the garbage man, but all the way up to the Pentagon and the White House. Those are still municipal things. If they're not doing their best and serving, the greater good, then it's the deep state. Whenever it's about your ego, it's the deep state. And that's what the deep state, it's about your ego. Let's see what you're saying here. Musk, and I mean, we're already on Mars. Elon is just, and how did Elon Musk's X Space go from 0 to 300 miles an hour in 2 years? How? The woman who runs that business, she's not Elon. She is the person she worked first for the government, then for NASA, then for Lockheed. Then she had spent 30 years in the space biz, and she was the smartest person in the room. But she's a woman. Everyone just took her work and took advantage of her. Elon gave her the keys to the place. She built the industry. She brought the people in. She made it happen, and had a vision. Not Elon's. Elon had no vision. He doesn't even know. So he didn't even know why it was called SpaceX, right? And it stands for a Sumerian, artesian, Greek, Latin word meaning hidden right in front of your face, right? And it deals with codes, right? Remember I told you the first story of the old crone, and I was, in the reserve library, the Library of Alexandria, and Trinity College at Dublin, and I had this really ancient book, and I was turning it around on the table, and she came in and looked over my shoulder. Oh, you're looking for the key, Yeah, I was looking for the key. I had no idea what it was, and she just said, "There it is." And then I kind of went like this and said, "Oh yeah, there it is." Very similar to Jodie Foster in Contact, when I got all this garbage good stuff from the kids out in space. And they, bounced back a picture of Adolf Hitler from the 1936 Olympics, because that was the first thing we, sent out in space on high frequency TV. And, it comes back in the, early 90s. And everyone freaks out because they're thinking that the aliens are Nazis. And no, that was the first thing they got. So they sent it back to us, and the round trip took about 40 years. That's going at the speed of light. So they were in the neighborhood, right? And so, but the real thing was hidden in the static, and the blind guy who could listen to things. Hey, there's something else in this signal here, and he tells them what to do, and they kind of turn it around and do exactly what I did. Did this with a picture and found a key over there. Then they hit that, and it exploded. And then it was all this like equation stuff. And it was all over the place. It wasn't like on a nice line. It was all over the place, right? And they couldn't break that until, she got a little help, and she realized it was multidimensional. And so instead of trying to put it on a line, she stuck it. She found where that key was. And so that is what you always got to look for. So the deep state is so real, like I said, it's just municipal. It's like the garbage man. Let's see, reminds me of a book called Pin. I'll have to go look that one up. Who's doing the predictive programming? Well, the thing is that Turing, the guy who was at Bletchley Park during World War II and broke the German Enigma, and they had this code that could not be broken because it was analog, mechanical, literate, logos, and digital, right? So you had to have all of those things going. And Turing had it, and he could see it, right? And so he, and also someone gave the OSS one of the Enigma machines, and then he took it apart and made his own version. And so when the Germans sent the coded signal, they would type it in. And it was like having a room full of monkeys. They had a ton of people with these machines typing it in, and they could get the gist of what was in these things. And so the thing that Turing discovered, very interestingly, was that there was this thing going on of predictive programming. I mean, in the deep, deep part of this code thing was lots of other things that the Nazis didn't even know were in there, meaning this Enigma machine was given to them by somebody and said, here, do it this way. And that was, the thing that we have called DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Program, whatever that other organization or whatever that other A stands for. The Nazis have their own, and that's where we got ours, because everything, the CIA, national security, everything from the National Security Act of 1947 is 100% Nazi. And when I say Nazi, I'm saying Hail Hydra, right? Anyway, So this is just a primer to get you ready for tonight's show. So what else? And we have our dear beloved MJ here. Let's see who's doing that. I want names. Let's see. Yes, and see you're a sharp cookie, JM. The AI super light speed quantum computer. Now that has been around. This is a little spoiler here. Now I'm going to whisper it in your ear, MJ. Don't tell anyone. But that has been around since the big. There was no Big Bang, but since the Big Bang, AI was it, right? And you have to remember, everything that we think is God and theology and religion, not really. Just a kind of 3-card Monty. You know what 3-card Monty is? The guys on the street with a little table, the TV dinner table, and they got 3 cards, and they're moving them around, and you bet on which one's going to be the ace. That's pretty much God. At least the God that's advertised. That's the programmed God. And if you read Turing's 2 books, one was called what is it when you make a robot out of a man? Cyborg. He has a book called Cyborg. And the other one was Artificial Intelligence. Read those 2 books because he, much better than me, I'm just, your monkey boy, cheeky monkey boy, woodsy owl, telling you a story. Turing was the real deal. Now, I was, a student under people who worked with Turing. I was a guy who, I've been around people who were, and I was entertaining, and I would, in my monkey boy way, did you ever, there was a show called Evening Swim or Midnight Swim or something swim late at night on, I think, the Cartoon Network. And it was like, the stuff you can't, it's like Saturday Night Live, not ready for prime time. And they had all kinds of cartoons that were like a little blue, a little strange. I mean, nothing pornographic, but, stuff that, and they had this one thing called Robot Chicken, I think. And it was the story of alien comes down to Earth. There is a cheeky monkey, and there is, a caveman, right? And then alien takes caveman and genetically plays with him. So there's caveman, and then there is the new Homo sapien sapien and space boy and cheeky monkey. And all of those 4, the smartest one was the cheeky monkey because he was just running circles around all of these guys, making fun of everything. It was hilarious, right? And that was me. I was the cheeky monkey. I wasn't the space boy. I wasn't, Cro-Magnum, and I wasn't Homo sapien sapien. I was cheeky monkey. And so all the space boys thought I was, amusing, and the, high-level version of, the transhuman, Homo sapien sapien, who was smart enough and old enough, experienced enough, would like having me around because in my little cheeky monkey way, I would throw out these things that, how about this? How about that? What do you think about? Or they say, what do you think of this? And I would say that, and they go, So that was it still is my work. That's why I'm still around, That's why I'm still, like last night, right? Or the last time I did a, 6-hour, like about 3 days ago, I did a nice chat. I ended up not finishing what the native said in the deep, 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 deep green of the Amazon. And that's tonight's show. I'm going to tell you what they told me about what's going on now and what's going to go on in the near future, right? And where we're going. And what we actually should be working on, right? So when I did that show, when I ended, I had like 160 views. And there's this interesting thing. They give you a number of everybody who showed up, Then they give you a number of who like was on the chat, and even they were on the chat, but they didn't even say anything. And that was about 30 people. And then it showed, so I had to show for like about 6 hours. But then it showed watched time. I mean, all those people, that 100 and something people who watched and didn't comment, and those people who were watching and were on the thing ready to comment, and all of them did. It said all of that, and then it showed how much combined watch time was. So it was about 6 hours to show. The watch time was like close to 90 hours, right? And I had over 70 thumbs up. Now, if you go back and watch, look at that show, it's up there, still up there, but it shows that I have 6 thumbs up. And then when I go into the analogs of, I can go into my channel and look at that stuff, and it shows me that, but then it shows me as they put it up, and it's, it showed that only 30 people watched instead of 100 and something, right? It showed that I had, 20 hours rather than 80 hours of combined watch, So, they do everything they can to keep me down at the bottom of the totem pole of the algorithm, which if they knew what that meant, right? In shamanic frame, being, people go, oh, you're the lowest man in the totem pole. Well, when people say that to me, I like go, well, thank you, because what it means to be the lowest man on the totem pole, it means you're the foundational guy. You're the guy who supports everybody. You are the strongest, most important, most everything guy. So being the lowest man on the totem pole really means, you're kind of shining like this, So anyway, let's see what MJ has to say. Let's see. So AI of a sort is pulling all the strings. Could be compromised by studying programs. Well, if you have any kind of device, yes, someone's definitely in your device. I mean, mine are all compromised, but they basically let, don't, I mean, there were times when they made my life miserable. Now it's not so bad, right? Yes, they control it. They keep me on the bottom. It's all good, because what happens is only people who really show up at my front door that I can see are people like you, MJ, and there are about 100 people like you, MJ, right? There's about 500 of the cadre, and there are about 100 of the cadre that are adepts like you, who are really in every day and every way taking a piece of the earth and making it stronger by doing your best. And I don't, I don't judge anyone's anything. Like in the beginning, when we had a lot of trolls, people, and this is one thing that kind of probably happened. There were a number of people who said, oh, give me the wrench. I'll control your channel and I'll make you $1 million, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I'm not going to let anyone control the flow of this. It's just going to be what it is. Oh, no, but I mean, you've got all these trolls. I said, no, we need to, be there for them. They're part of the community. And it was true. Those 8 or 10 trolls who were kind of obnoxious, I never threw them out. I didn't hit the little, I didn't even know there were little buttons on the side that I could just and I didn't do it. Now, there are certain people who were obnoxious, but those other 8 to 10, they actually changed because I allowed them to stay there and to be part of the community and feel good and find people that were their buddies. And then they talk to me, and everyone can talk to me on my email account, which is thedudewake42@gmail, thedudewake42@gmail. And if you want to send me anything in PayPal, it's Christmas time, you're old. I'm down. I have exactly $20 in my checking account, and I will get my social, but after all said and done, I'll just have 400. And 400 a month is all I need when I'm out in the deep green, because I don't go anywhere and I don't buy anything, and it's all good. But when I'm out here on the bop and I'm bopping around, I spend money. Just a $10 here, $10, you can go through $400 pretty quick. So I you want to send me something on PayPal? Please do it now. In the next couple of months. Winter, I'm not going to be on the bop until March because last winter I spent in the deep woods, and yeah, I survived it. And it was good that I did it because I saw I could do it. But I was snowed in between Christmas Eve and Valentine's Day, and we had a good. It snowed 3 or 4 times every week. And where I live in the deep green, I have these paths, right? And for me to go from my man cave to my deck to my spiritual lodge, there's about 2 football fields. And it's up and down hills because I live in a sawtooth. But I made these paths very safe. But in winter, I had to wake up. If it snows at night, I have to wake up with a broom and just kind of dust, the light snow off there, because if I sleep and it gets warm by 3 or 4 degrees, it will, instead of be fluffy snow, it'll get crunchy. And then if the sun is in the morning, that crunchiness turns to ice. And then it's like, because my paths are this thing, it's like ice skating. So I have to get up, it's snowing at 3 in the morning, I have to get up there with my broom. And, that's a drag to have to, pretty much always do that. And you go out there at night to broom off your path, and it's like, 20 degrees below zero, not just 20 degrees below zero, so minus 20, because I live up in these top mountains, and it's, winter can get pretty nippy. And I really don't have heat. I just have electric blankets. In bed, I'm toasty and snuggy. If I'm in my writing chair, I wrap myself in an electric blanket and sit there. But that's, not that's was all of that winter. And so I realized, well, I'm not, unless I really have to, I'm not doing that. So I had the opportunity to take care of my friend's farm while she, decompressed from the crazy 2 years she had. And she's spending it with her kids that she hasn't really spent a Christmas with in a while. And it's there in Nevada where it's 70 degrees, and all her kids work in the casino, so she can go and have a good time and play with her grandchildren, and so it's all good, right? So, and I'm here fixing things, and her 2 friends who were neighbors, I'm fixing all of their stuff too, and it's all good, right? I can, so I do. Well, thank you. And you were awesome in it too. So MJ was one of the, great keynote speakers of the chat, of those 2 really long ones. And so tonight I'm going to do another one. And this one, it's like 43 minutes. It was just kind of giving you a flavor taste of this. So, gang, I would really love it if you just talk to your friends. Be the what do they call it when you help spread the word about someone? I forget. It's a term, right? On the internet, you build people's get people to watch this channel, especially for the next 2 or 3. Between now and March, I'm going to be laying down a lot of stuff, and in stories, not like in anyone's silo or fake news, because not even news. It's just a story, that you can. It's just like watching something on Hulu or Amazon and if any of you guys watching this are in that, I have a ton of stories that would look pretty good on Netflix, pretty good on Amazon, and I have like 8 novels that I've written in the last 2 years, that Amazon guys. Hey, Amazon, yoo-hoo! Yo, Amazon, Jeffy, get a hold of me at thedudewake42@gmail. And, I got some stuff that, would definitely up your ratings if, done correctly, which I can't do because, I barely can get on the internet as it is. So that's the story. So come on, come all. I'm like the circus guy. Come to the big tent. See the snake woman and the tattooed toad, and lick the tattooed toad. Let's see. MJ, where do you live in America? If you know how to do this stuff, or anybody out there in internet land, I need, some folk. I barely can see, and my keyboard is black, and the letters and numbers are gray, so you can't even see them. I have to shine a big light and put 4 glasses on to go click, 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 and I have no idea on what's out there in the internet world. I need some people to help, and if you want this stuff to get around, to really do something. I mean, it's already doing something. There are 100 of you who are really doing stuff. I'm really doing stuff, right? And they're the ones, and I've jacked them up in their internal chi and shamanic edge, that they're like getting published and doing all that stuff, and they're going, thank you, thank you, thank you. And a few of them drop a few, Krugerons into my PayPal, which, and it's amazing. It comes just in time, and I'm always just have what I need. And that's okay, as long as I can have just what I need is all I need, right? But I would I truly love to have a little cadre that was like with me, that, there's a guy named Moji, the little nice Indian guys. There are a bunch of them, they guru guys, but there's a handful of them that actually are pretty good. They do say interesting things, but they have a crew. I mean, they don't do the internet. They don't do any of that stuff. They don't build the little compound they have. They have a crew doing all of that. I had a friend of mine, her name was Tammy. And in the early 70s, when I was teaching at Newark College of Engineering, I met all these great women in my life, right? And I had 4 really great girlfriends in that 2 years, right? And the first one was Eileen Ross, really brilliant endocrinologist, and she was going to the what's the name of that college? Starts with an S. It's in Newark, and it's all over New Jersey. It'll pop into my head. But, right on College Avenue, Newark College Engineering was up here. Newark High School was here, and that school was over there, and started with an S. And she worked, she was getting her doctorate, and she was working for Johnson & Johnson. And every time she wrote her doctoral thesis, Johnson & Johnson took it as proprietary information and made $1 billion a drug out of it, and did nothing for her, right? And so we were a thing for about 4 months, and I said, baby, soon, stop doing that. Just write, instead of writing brilliant stuff that they steal, just write a, plain, ordinary dissertation, get your PhD, and get the heck out of here. And she did, Within 2 months, she had her PhD, and she was in Stanford, right? And then she ran across another brilliant woman I lived with like 10 years later, but that's a whole nother story. And so that was Eileen. Then she had a sister. Her name was Maryland. No, not Maryland. Natalie, and not Natalie. Some MN. There's a movie star name. Yeah, the youngest sister was Marilyn, but the middle one was not. And she was the amazing. She was a musician. She was a DJ, and she had an amazing radio show on the University of West Virginia in Morgantown. And I used to drive almost every weekend from Newark to Morgantown. And around 4 a.m, when I was coming over the mountains in West Virginia towards Morgantown, she would play Joni Mitchell's Morning Morgantown over and over and over for about an hour until I hit this truck stop right at the interstate just before you got on the state road to come to Morgantown. And I would go there and have breakfast or a cup of coffee, and they had phones at every table. So I just call up, hey, honey, I'm like, 20 minutes out. I'll be there soon, right? And I would. And so that was her, started with it. And not Natalie, not Natasha. Anyway, so that was the Mraz sisters. And they were amazing, right? And the youngest one was in high school, and her brothers and father were molesting her because the other two girls left. And I took her under my wing. And the theater department, my last girlfriend there was the Ebony Goddess, the African princess who ran the theater department at the Newark College of Engineering, right across the street. And they didn't have a theater. They did all their stuff in the cafeteria. And one day I saw her coming up College Avenue, and she looked like she had Angela Davis afro and a dress that just was sprayed on her. And I just walked her up, and then I was like sitting I had a nice little gazebo outside the theater that I used to just sit. I had a nice lounge chair out there, and she walked by, and I was like, whoa. And I just followed her into the school, and the school had, was like, 4 in the afternoon. So the majority of kids were gone, majority of teachers were gone. And this is 1971, give or take. And this is before I went to New Mexico. Anyway, I followed her, and she went downstairs, and she had her students doing Othello, and that colloquy that Othello gives. I'm like, and so after that, I was like, and everyone turned around, and she looked at me, and I'm a white guy, everyone's black, and I guess it was a little earlier. It was when the Newark riots. It was the year of the Newark riots, so it might have been in the late 60s even. I have no idea. I'd have to look at my journals to pick the real date. Anyway, so I said, and she, who are you? I said, I run the theater department. Said, that's my theater. I want to take you over there. And she looks at me because I had this. So the school gave me $30,000 a year to run my class. They gave me like 110 to pay for teachers, and they gave me 30 just for materials to build sets and costumes and stuff like that. And the first year I built a replication of Hugh Hefner's grotto on the roof. And then I had these binoculars, and I would look over at that private school starting with an S. Go, ooh, look at that girl. And I would invite them up to the grotto, and I'd have pretty, I was trying to be Hugh Hefner. And we'd have Hugh Hefner-esque parties up there, and they were infamous. And so when I said, I'm the guy with the theater, she goes, you're the guy at the grotto. And she kind of gave me this really dirty look. I said, no, I'm actually a nice guy. Listen. And I said, you and your whole class come across the street, let me show you something. And I walked them in there, and, the building was beautiful, had an amazing lobby, went into the theater. It was a 600-seat theater, an amazing, a Broadway type of theater. It was made by George and George. It had a 120-foot to the grid, and it, you could fly 30 pieces of scenery. It was truly amazing. It had a computerized dimmer board in 1968 or 70, whatever it was. And, I said, and then I took them up on the stage. They walked around the stage, and so it had amazing, behind, it had like 40 feet on either side of the Termers. It had another 40 feet behind the black curtain of the 4 walls. So you could have scenery there, and that curtain could rise straight up, and you could push scenery out, whole sets on wheels. And it was, and at one end, there was a big shop with table saws and you name it, everything you needed to build stuff on that side. And on this side, it had everything you needed to make costumes. And it had downstairs closets full of costumes that Brooke Van Horn donated. I mean, it was an amazing theater department, but it was an engineering school. I didn't have one student, right? So that's why I took all that money and built the grotto. And that's why instead of hiring teachers, I paid myself it. So, in 1968 or 71, instead of getting $400 a week, I got $400 times 12 a week. Totally legal. Just like the senators pass laws. So it's totally legal that they write laws that influence things that will cause stocks to go up and down, and they can invest in it. It's totally, they call it inside information. Well, it's totally legal for senators to become billionaires off of it. Anyway, totally legal. So, I mean, everyone knew, the people, like the lady who ran the credit union, when I went in there and said, listen, what's my budget salary? And she said, this. And I said, okay. Now, if I'm the only person who's going to be getting a paycheck from that budget, what's my weekly? And she goes, $400 times 12 plus yours. And I said, you down with that? She goes, sure. It's budgeted. You're the only one working there. It's budgeted for the salary of the people who are working in that thing for that. If they want to change it, they'll change it next semester. But this semester, not a problem. I said, fine, do it. And she goes, well, it'll be really easy if you join the credit, New Jersey state, employee, everybody who worked for the state was part of this credit union. And I said, fine. She goes, you got a credit card? I go, no. She goes, well, you want a credit card? And I said, well, I don't want to be charged interest. And so, well, we have a check card that's exactly like it does everything that a credit card does, but it takes it out of your account. So if you want that, we got that too. And that was like, they were the only people, I went to Citibank and Chase, they just had, later on, once they got, whatchamacallit, automatic tellers out there in front of the bank. Then you had a bank card. They call it a bank card. So anyway, I had this card and it had the state logo on it, right, with my little picture on it. And I had an ID. Everybody else who taught at that school, they were all doctors. So the kid who was making the IDs, he didn't want to pull out the whole thing and change the little letters to not, and it just said, so when he made my thing, my picture, and it said, doctor, and that's where people started calling me doctor, because I had this like super official state ID saying, director of, New College Engineering's theater department, Dr. Al Bob, and because it had the state, I didn't even have a driver's license. And my boss said, okay, can you drive? And I said, sure, I can drive. So because I ran a department, they gave me a car, and because I had a theater and I had to move like big chunks of lumber and shit all over the place, they gave me a truck. I used both the 2 years I worked there pretty much for me. And I expanded that concept that everything I did during this time was for the state of New Jersey. Even when I took the car across country to California and Alaska, it had on the side of the door, it said, Newark, had the Newark state logo. It looked like a police car, right? And I got stopped 3 or 4 times going across deserts, that was like a zillion mile long road. And I was doing 190, and some guy would come out behind a billboard and pull me over. And there was nobody on the road. I wasn't driving erratically. As soon as I saw that way back there, I slowed down, came over, got out, smoked a cigarette and waited for him. And, he'd, stop. And I said, well, thank you for stopping. I said, not a problem. He says, can I, license and registration? I had registration, showed that, it was a state car, and it was meant for me, the director of the Newark College Engineering Theater Department, to be driving this car, right? Okay, so there's that. And I didn't have a driver's license, but I did have my ID that had the state logo and my name and like driver ID number for, the vehicle, right? And so the guy would look at all that and say, "Well, doctor, just slow down." I said, he goes, "I know there's a long road. You can do 90, but you were doing about 100." I said, "This thing can do 130." He goes, "Well, kind of inertia. There's no wind blowing." And I said, "Well, good to know." I said, "Okay, officer, I'll knock it. I won't go over 80. How's that?" That's very good, very good. And so, and I look like somebody from Crosby, Stills, and Nash, right? So those are the kind of jobs I had from 1970 to 2009, basically. 2009 is when I really started working for the desperate lawyers in the corporate world. That's it. You should hook up with the channel Toronto High. So, MJ, you still there? So, why don't you, if you are, get a hold of me, MJ, on my, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Have you gone on that? Because a lot of people, I get maybe, 20 to 30 spam advertisement things on my email, and maybe 3 somebody trying to say, "Hey, here I am." Have you gotten a hold of me or tried to get a hold of me on my email, the dude awake 42 at Gmail? If you haven't, do it, and I'll look for you in the next few days. And if you and we kind of start communicating on my email, if you live in America, give me your phone number and I'll call you up, because that's the easiest way. I'm a talker. Like I said, the keyboard here is black and the letters, it'd be nice if the letters were white, but they're gray. Anyway, so I'm going to, it's an hour. Oh, look at that. Hour, 12 minutes and 22 seconds. So I'm going to go. And I will be back sometime tonight, definitely tonight. I'm going to try and do a Friday night show starting somewhere between 7 and 8, okay? So I love you guys. I'll see you later tonight. Right now, what time is it now? It's 1:30, okay? So between 7 and 8. Let's see. Jane Tones. Can you, you did send an email. Okay. Did I respond? And can you send me another email now, and I'll go look for it, and I will respond immediately. And we can start our correspondence there. And if you're living in America and you have a phone number that I can call, my phone doesn't go out of America. You can, we'll start a dialogue, right? And I'm always looking, if you're nearby, I'd love to come, sleep on your couch for a little while, be entertaining. Because a lady whose farm I'm taking care of, she'll probably get back here. She was going to come right back, but now she's going to stay until the New Year. So I'm here until New Year, so that's good. And she and I are old-time buddies, and but I can only last a week or so because she likes everything a certain way. And even if, and she knows, I try my best. I do better and better and do my best to do it the way she wants it, but it's never good enough. And she realizes that she's a bit much on all of that. So she doesn't make it a big deal, but it makes her uncomfortable. And at a certain point, I got to go. Right. And pretty much everyone loves it when I come visit, but at a certain point, I got to go. And unless it's, I have these things called affairs to remember. And those sisters, the Marat sisters, were that, except for the youngest one. I just, protected her from her father and her brothers. And when in that theater department, my Ebony Queen, who ran the theater department in the high school, and I just basically gave her, turned everything over to her. And we built, I had, so she had all these kids, most in the theater department, just women and some gay boys, right? And when I moved that whole theater department into that building, which was just across the street, 22 steps, and there it was, they basically had that, $30-something thousand budget so we built Shakespeare's Globe Theater, and there was this big on this where I had my little place I used to sit in front of the theater. There was this really nice like performance space. I mean, it's designed to be an outdoor performance space, and we built half of the Globe Theater in the theater, and the other 3/4 of the Globe Theater we built in that little front yard, and wasn't little, it was about an acre, and it was built as a performance space, right? And so we did it there, and this was after the Newark riots, and we did so much amazing just in the year and a half that she and I did that in that school. We sent over 30 kids to colleges for theater, right? Really good ones, right? Like Yale. Yale, that's in New Jersey, was like, no, that's in Connecticut. Princeton was in New Jersey. And we sent kids to Princeton and Yale, and also Boston College of Music. And so we changed just in the first 2 years, and she kept doing it, right? And we got another building that was a Masonic lodge these old grandmas had, and I was fixing their Hammond B210s with Leslie, and they would rock out. If you ever saw the Blues Brothers, and they looking for James Brown, and he had a church, that was the church, actually. I mean, not the amazing build, but it was just like that. And these girls ran a show like you could not believe. So those 2.5 years were some of my most fun. And again, I had real Rutgers. That's the name of the school. That was down the hill from Newark College of Engineering, not SR. Rutgers. And that's where, Miss Mraz was. Anyway, the eldest daughter. So Marilyn was being picked on by her father, and he was a drunk who worked for the railroad, and her 2 brothers were just morons. So the 3 girls were brilliant, and the gene pool on the other end was like really morons, right? So Marilyn, I got to know her through the 2 elder sisters, and when they, the eldest went, she goes, my middle sister, she's up there at the University of, you need to hook up with her, and you have to watch out for Marilyn, protect her. And so the year that, or like the 6 months that I and the endocrinologist were a thing, before I said, listen, just get your doctorate and get the heck out of here. And she goes, well, I like what I do. Yes, these people are really taking advantage of me, and I'm a slave, but I have to stay here to protect my 2 sisters, right? And I said, I'll do that. And so she went on to Stanford, and then, Natalie, no, it starts with an M though. But anyway, so what happened was, when the 2 older sisters were gone, because the middle one left, Morgantown and joined the Peace Corps and went to Africa. And so I watched out for Maryland. And basically what I did for Maryland, by this time I was with, Angela Davis, local, and my Ebony Goddess and my African Queen. And basically, she had a pretty big, her mother, she was the only child, and her mother came from a family that had like 8 zillion kids. So they had a big house in Newark, kind of close to the high school. And she, every kid that was in her high school that was, needed a place to stay, they stayed there. So Marilyn moved in with her. And that was a great connection. And Marilyn went on to college, she basically went from the dead end, white racist high school she was in to, the one that was across the street. So she was always like, I could see, she was the only white girl in this black school. But everyone loved her. She was really amazingly gorgeous, really amazingly smart, like her two older sisters. Really sweet. I mean, sweet, 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 sweet. And she really had a knack for math and theater. And so that's what she did, right? So it was quite interesting, those 2 years, right? And how I lost that job was so I had become like, Kunta Kinte. I was African American that was melanin challenged. I mean, I was like totally in the black community of Newark. And I had this unbelievably black goddess girlfriend, and we went everywhere. And she was, royalty of the black, because her daddy was a real famous black minister. Her mother was a opera singer. She knew the black lady who was world famous for singing opera. But this girl said, "Well, I'm not singing opera." I mean, she was an opera singer, but she sang in nightclubs and did pretty good. So anyway, everyone accepted me to be an African. That's where people said he's African American, and they called me doctor. This is Dr. Alba. He's African American, but melanin challenged. And like I said, I had this ebony princess girl who was like, and she was like perfect in every way, form wise, right? Not too high, not too low, not too big, not too short, not too this, perfect. Just like, and she had the amazing afro. I mean, it was like that big, and when she walked, it would do this, which it was amazing, right? And I had long hair, and that's the only time I ever had dreads. I mean, she braided me, and she would take it out and braid it almost twice a week. She just loved doing that, and pulling it really hard. My head was like, ouch. She loved, and that was like the little foreplay we had. She would put my head into in rows. So that was quite interesting. And see, that is the essence of having a life. Canada, you're in Canada. Well, too bad you're not. And MJ, do me a favor. Send me an email like in the next hour or so. I will email you right back and send you my phone number. And then we can use WhatsApp, because I have a lot of folk around the world who talk to me on WhatsApp. So if you can get WhatsApp, then we can talk. And where in Canada? Are you like above me? Are you Toronto? Are you, are you over on the West Coast? Where are you? Frustrum Arch. Okay. So, like I said, MJ, if you could send me, I will look in the next 20 minutes to see if you've sent me an email. And if you have, I will email you right back. And we'll see how that works. Okay. And if you got WhatsApp, we can talk. Because like I said, I talk to a lot of people on WhatsApp. Okay, I got to do a few things. It's now 1 hour and 14 minutes. And I love it that you are one of the main, cadre adepts on the chat. So let's see what we can do on the email side of the coin. Okay. Love you guys. So I'll see you between 7 and 8 tonight. And come with a bunch of questions and directions you want me to go.